Nathan, the little Jewish who turned misery into 2 billion, was a rejected child who lived in extreme poverty. But years later, he became a millionaire businessman. This is the story of Timberland, which had its origin in a Jewish boy named Nathan Swartz. In his childhood, he only aspired to a better future by working as a leather tanner. Later, he would inherit $1 million business for his children and grandchildren. Back then, there was no way to escape poverty. This was something that the boy who was born in 1902 in the heart of a Jewish family under the Russian Empire knew. No one had told him that there was something beyond the borders of Russia. He couldn't even imagine that he would become the creator of a global shoe brand. If someone had told him then, he would have never believed that his company would eventually be worth $2 billion. Nathan Swartz was the founder of Timberland, one of the most famous and recognized American companies for casual, hiking, and urban fashion footwear worldwide. Now, they also manufacture sportswear and accessories, competing with giants like Nike, Reebok, and Adidas. Timberland is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and by 2008, it had annual estimated revenues of $1.4 billion. It all began in the year 1902, in the city of Odessa, part of the Russian Empire, now in Ukraine. It was a time when Odessa was a classic port city of old Europe, with winters freezing the waters of seas and lagoons for 16 days and summers facing stifling heat, droughts, and even storms. Just like many other Jewish families, Nathan's family was besieged and rejected by migrating traders, Italians, Bulgarians, Germans, French, and especially Greeks. In these icy dwellings, a baby boy was born into a humble Jewish family, with no knowledge that destiny would make him one of the most recognized entrepreneurs in the footwear industry. Times were tough, families had to dig deep holes in their yards to get water to drink, but it was scarce. Everything was scarce for them. They had to coexist with port workers who arrived for seasonal work and ended up entwined in the cycle of poverty, forming families where work was scarce. It was easy to distinguish the Jews. They often wore dirty or tattered clothes and had a different appearance and way of speaking. They had no luxuries and were the lowest rung of the social ladder. This was how the little Nathan lived, his family being the 4th generation of leather tanners. His parents, grandparents, and ancestors had done this for 100 years, and he would continue without doubts. But how did this little Jewish boy manage to build an international company? What was so special about his footwear that it attracted customers ranging from loggers and laborers to travelers, mountaineers, and even rap stars? Keep watching to the end of this video to discover his story. In the year 1910, things started to change. In the ancient Europe, there was political tension and social unrest, setting the stage for World War I. The Swartz family didn't want to wait and find out how things would change. Perhaps they thought things would only get worse. They had heard of a place called America. They gathered their few possessions and left, like other neighbors had already done. It was 1910, and Nathan was only around 8 years old when they arrived in the Boston region of the United States, specifically the town of Abington. The first problem they encountered was the language. They couldn't communicate effectively. But Massachusetts, a word they could barely pronounce, was much better than Odessa. They found many Jewish families escaping persecution. In general, that was a prosperous time in the United States, with churches, educational centers, cultural and sports facilities being built, and industries developing. There was a high demand for leather and shoes, and the Swartz family made that their profession. They started making shoes and became known for their work. By the time Nathan turned 16, he got a job as an assistant in a New York shoe store. He worked there for several years, learning the art of sewing, but there was always something stirring in his mind. He constantly wanted to invent new things, to improve the shoes he crafted with his own hands. Over time, he acquired Abington shoes. The young Swartz became a master shoemaker, but it wasn't a quick journey. He had been in the trade for more than 20 years, and much had happened in his life. He got married, had 2 sons, Herman and Sidney. The discipline he learned from his Jewish heritage and the days of hardships in Odessa had taught him not to waste and to live frugally. This allowed him to save enough money to acquire half of an old shoe company in southern Boston in 1952, Abington Shoes. At that time, they were only subcontracting shoe manufacturing for other brands. They had to work hard, they weren't the only or the best shoemakers, and profits were modest. But the Swartz family managed to buy the entire company. Then it was 1955, he was 53 years old, and a business that for the first time was his own. He took his children to work with him in this company that could be his legacy. The master shoemaker made a mistake. It was barely the beginning of the ascent. There was still a need to fight. What was produced at Abington Shoes was of questionable quality, cheap but not that good, and the profits remained meager. He persisted and continued working for 15 years until he could afford machinery for shoe manufacturing. Then came the relocation of the company to Newmarket, New Hampshire. That was a mountainous region, filled with huge green forests, rivers, and streams. Blizzards, storms, and harsh winters were common occurrences. Working outdoors was a challenge. There, Nathan found cheaper labor than in the Boston region, and it was easy to train them, to teach them leather tanning. With this, he could achieve better quality leather and better prices for the shoes he manufactured. In New Hampshire, men needed sturdy, comfortable footwear that could stay dry despite the humid climate conditions. He needed boots that would keep out snow, rain, and mud. Nathan directed his efforts towards that market. The Timberland brand was born. Nathan focused on selecting the best leather and strong seams. Thanks to this, the Abington Company grew year by year until the 1960s. But for the master shoemaker, it wasn't enough. In 1965, he developed a new manufacturing technique. No longer would boots need to be hand-sewn. This new technique was known as injection molding, which chemically bonded the sole of the footwear to the leather without the need for stitching. Ideal boots for forest work and New Hampshire's climate were produced. The company accelerated its production, reduced costs, and made the Abington boots more waterproof than any other product available at the time. In 1973, with this system, the first Timberland boot was created, a completely waterproof leather shoe. Of course, it wasn't called that initially, it was still an Abington footwear. It wasn't until a colleague in an advertising agency suggested the name Timberland, honoring the wood of New Hampshire's forests, that the name stuck. Nathan Swartz retired in 1968 at the age of 66. The company continued under Herman's management. In 1973, his son Sidney Swartz created the legendary yellow boot and changed the company's name to Timberland Company. In 1976, the leather boot officially hit the North American market with a variety of colors, but the yellow one stood out and became the hallmark of the company. The footwear gained popularity, serving both hikers and workers needing sturdy and comfortable boots. After appearing in New Yorker, Timberland started appearing in Manhattan stores. The first official store was in Rhode Island, and by 1979, Timberland had gone international, reaching Europe thanks to Giuseppe Veronese, who bought 900 pairs and brought them to Italy. Starting from 1980, production began in Italy, and they became so successful that they were considered a fashion accessory and became part of urban culture. In 1984, Nathan Swartz passed away at the age of 82. After his passing, Sidney took over the company and took steps to have the brand listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Italian fashion stores started offering this American work boot, and other markets followed suit. In the 1990s, urban culture, with rap at its peak, inadvertently boosted Timberland sales. People who idolized musicians such as Nas and Notorious B.I.G. noticed they were wearing the Swartz boots. Naturally, everyone wanted them. The popularity of rap led to Timberland's name appearing in song lyrics, and the more popular rap became, the more boots were sold. Artists like Rihanna, Kanye West, Gwen Stefani, Khloe Kardashian, Hailey Baldwin, Pharrell, Drake, Jay-Z, Gigi Hadid, and Kylie Jenner embraced the boots as part of their attire. The Swartz family expanded into other markets, producing sandals and moccasins, while still keeping their classic yellow boot. In 2011, Jeffrey, Sidney's son, grandson of Nathan, sold Timberland Corporation for a staggering $2 billion. Today, the company is no longer in the Swartz family's hands, but it will always be linked to the history of the child born in Odessa, who persevered and fought against all odds. A child who survived 2 world wars, poverty, social rejection for being Jewish, and in Massachusetts transformed his destiny from a leather tanner and shoemaker to the creator of the world's most famous boots, Timberland's yellow boots. Thanks for getting here. I hope you liked the video. If so, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. This was featured by Chronicles of Greatness. Until next time.